players should you avoid in your fantasy draft? So talking about that in today's video. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. We put out content all year long. And today we are looking at current ADP for half PPR and going through each round, rounds 2 through 10, I believe, 2 through 12, excuse me, and choosing one player from each round that I'm going to probably avoid given where they're being drafted. Now, these ones are always a little, people get pretty offended with these ones because it's like, well, I love this guy. This player is a great player. And why do you not like him? It's not that I don't like these players, especially in the early rounds. They're going in the early rounds for a good reason. That being said, you have to look at where they're going in terms of the value of that position and that player and given other players around them. And so given where they're going in the draft currently, according to ADP, Sleeper ADP, I'm going to avoid these players most likely. Now, if they fall a little bit, that's a different story. And we're going to kick it off. Again, this is half PPR redraft fantasy football. This is not a mock draft. This is according to current ADP. As you can see, some teams, for example, Team 6, this is for one QB, by the way. Team 6 is not going to be drafting 4 quarterbacks, right? Team 3 here, probably not going to have back-to-back tight ends. But this is current ADP, roughly where each player is going. And round 1, I'm not going to talk about round 1 because it's round 1 and every pick is good. That's why they're going in round 1. So I'll start off with round 2. And the player I'm going to choose, again, people are going to be a little upset about this, but it's Sam Laporta. Going at the 212, and I've seen him go in the early. I've seen him go even earlier. And in a non-tight end premium, I'm going to avoid Sam Laporta this year. It's just too high for me. I understand the guy was awesome as a rookie. He was tight end 1 as a rookie, which we never see that, right? We never see rookies come in as tight ends and be the number 1 at their position, right? Now in half PPR, he was actually tied with Kelsey in points per game, but he was number 1 in total points. That being said, I think we have to differentiate. Okay, yes, he can finish as tight end 1, but I think a lot of people are equating that to, well, that means he's going to be like Kelsey was the last 5 years, where Kelsey was dominant. And you look at Kelsey's numbers in half PPR, 15.4 in 2022, 13.6 in 2021, 17.4 in 2020. Like Kelsey was not just tight end 1 in most of those years, but he was like clear cut, way better than everyone else tight end 1. And last year, Sam Laporta was tight end 1, but he was 11.5 points per game. 11.5 points per game, which is one of the lowest we've seen in a while. So the way I'm approaching the tight end position here is if you want to get one of the top guys, there's a bucket of 4 guys, in my opinion. It's Laporta, it's Kelsey, it's Andrews, and McBride. And those players, I think any one of those 4 players could finish as tight end 1 pretty easily, right? McBride could be better than Laporta this year. Andrews could be better than Laporta. And I'm getting both, especially McBride and Andrews, I'm getting them 2 rounds later. I'm going to go ahead. If I want one of the top guys, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till round 3, round 4. I'm going to grab Andrews and McBride rather than spending a second-round pick on Sam Laporta. In round 3, it's Stephon Diggs. It's Stephon Diggs at the 308. Now, I will say this. I am in the boat of I don't think Stephon Diggs is done necessarily. Yeah, I don't think he's done to the extent that a lot of people do think he's done. But round 3 is just a little bit too rich for me considering he's in a very crowded receiving room. There is a chance that he is just done. Generally, when older players start to look old and not produce, it's for a specific reason. Now, he's 30 years old, so there's plenty of receivers that have produced at the age of 30. I guess my fear here is in round 3, I want to limit risks as much as possible. I'll take the risks later on, round 5, 6, 7. I'll take some risks for some high outcome players, but round 3, I need to know that this guy is going to produce for me. And, round 3, there's a few guys that I'm worried about. Stephon Diggs is maybe the most I'm worried about, of just like, I could see him being, a top 15, top 12 wide receiver. I can also see him being like a top 30 wide receiver, and I wouldn't be that surprised. So I just want to limit risk as much as possible the first 5 rounds. And to me, Stephon Diggs is a little bit too much of a risk. Into round 4. Round 4, I'm choosing CJ Stroud. Another situation where people are going to be a little bit upset, but CJ Stroud was awesome last year. I get it. And he just added Stephon Diggs, right? And Joe Mixon. And he has all these weapons. He has a good tight end. He has 3 good wide receivers. Hell, he even has Robert Woods and Noah Brown to step in if one of the top 3 receivers get banged up. He, like I said, he has a good run game. That being said, CJ Stroud last year, and he was a rookie, so we don't know if this is just who he is or it was just kind of what he did last year. He rushed for less than 15 yards per game. Specifically, he had 11.1 rushing yards per game. There's been very, very few quarterbacks, about one every year, for quarterbacks that have averaged less than 15 yards rushing a game to finish in the top 5 in points per game. There's about one every year. Now, everyone could say, well, that's going to be CJ Stroud. And I say to you, there's a good chance it is CJ Stroud, right? There's a good chance that it is CJ Stroud. He's the one that's going to rush for less than 15 yards and be a top 5 quarterback. That being said, I don't really see him cracking the top 3, right? I think we're drafting him at his absolute peak. Like, this is his peak. And if he has a little bit of a down touchdown year or throws, 28 to 30 touchdowns instead of 35 plus touchdowns, then we're going to be looking at a situation where he's going to be a bit of a disappointment from where we took him, right? So I just think we're drafting someone at their peak, and I generally don't like to draft people at their peak. I like to find values when possible. So we've seen it a year after year. Justin Herbert a couple years ago was being drafted as like the QB2. Pocket passers, even though they can have a good football year, they can have a good numbers. Pocket passers need to put up big passing numbers to be considered top 5 guys. We're talking about 35 to 40 touchdowns, 4,500 plus yards type of stuff. Look at Patrick Mahomes last year. And Patrick Mahomes is not even a pure pocket passer. He can move a bit. He gets you 20 yards on the ground or so. Look at Patrick Mahomes last year. Patrick freaking Mahomes, the best quarterback in the entire NFL, was QB 12 in points per game last year because pocket passers struggle. If they struggle with touchdowns or one of their guys gets hurt, right? Or they have bad pass catchers, it's a little bit more out of their control, in my opinion, for them to just struggle in fantasy football. Moving on to round number 5. My choice for round number 5 is Zay Flowers. He's going at the 501 right now, and I get it. The dude had an awesome rookie year, and usually rookies who have the type of year that usually rookies who had the type of season that Zay Flowers had will take a bigger leap in their year 2. 850 yards, 5 touchdowns, stuff like that. My worry is more about the offense that he's in. This Baltimore offense with Lamar Jackson as the quarterback, which is right now we have 5 years, 19, 20, 1, 2, and 3. We have 5 years as this Ravens team with Lamar Jackson as the quarterback. And I think the best that a wide receiver has done is like wide receiver 24, Marquise Brown in like 2021. I think that's like the best we've ever seen from a Ravens wide receiver. Mark Andrews to me is the number 1 target on this team, and that's not going to change. Zay Flowers, they're still going to run the ball a hell of a lot. They got Derrick Henry, you got Lamar Jackson. I just don't see Zay Flowers taking the leap enough to be a 5th round pick. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. I'll take other guys like Tank Dell, T. Higgins, George Pickens, Amari Cooper. I'll take all these guys over Zay Flowers. If you're talking about the end of the 5th, 6th round for Zay Flowers, okay, I'm a little bit more in. We're talking about the beginning of the 5th round, potentially a 4th round pick. I think I'm out on Zay Flowers at that price. In round 6, it's Jayden Reed for me. You see Jayden Reed here going at the 6'10". Again, how I'm approaching these kind of ambiguous wide receiver rooms where we don't really know how the target share is going to work out. Now, to me, there's like 3 of them that really stand out. It's the Texans, it's the Bears, and it's the Packers. Those are the 3 that really stand out. Now, with the Texans, I think it's probably Nico, maybe Diggs and then Dell, right? Or Dell and Diggs, switch those two. But I think if we're pretty safe at putting Nico as the number one guy. For the Bears, I feel pretty safe at putting DJ Moore as the number one guy. And he's a guy I almost chose, by the way, for my round 3 worry. But I think it's pretty clear he's the number one guy. For the Packers, though, we have no idea who's going to be the number one. It's probably between Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. But Romeo Doubs is going to be out there a lot. Dontavian Wicks, the team seems to love. They have 2 really good pass-catching tight ends. They just brought in Josh Jacobs, and paid him, so they might run the ball a little bit more. So what that means, basically, is can Jaden Reed produce as a late 6th-round pick in fantasy? Of course. Can he be better than that? Of course. The dude, sneakily is up there with a really damn good rookie year. 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, plus another 2 touchdowns on the ground, like over 900 total yards. That's elite rookie stuff right there. My worry is the value of the other players. Christian Watson's all the way at the 905. Romeo Doubs at the 10-12. Dontavian Wicks is outside the top 12 rounds. I think how I'm going to approach the Packers wide receiver room this year is probably avoid the guy who's going number 1, especially if he's going significantly higher than guys like Christian Watson. To me, it's more of a closer to like 50-50 split in terms of who's going to be better for fantasy between Watson and Reed. And I can get a almost 3-round discount, 2.5-round discount on Christian Watson compared to Jaden Reed. So not that I don't like Jaden Reed, not that I don't think he can kind of produce where this is. Again, I just think you look at the value of the other Packers receivers, and I'm going to head that way rather than spend, a 6th-round pick on Jaden Reed. Round 7, I got Brock Bowers here. Brock Bowers going above guys like Njoku, Ferguson, even Goddard, in my opinion, is, he's going a round ahead of Ferguson, a round and a half over Goddard, almost 2 rounds ahead of Goddard. I just think it's a little bit like, if Sam Laporta didn't do what he did last year, would Brock Bowers be going at the 7-7, right? Think about that for a second. If Laporta didn't do what he did last year, would Brock Bowers still be going in the 707 as tight end? What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Tight end 9, so as a top 10 tight end. And I don't think so. So we are boosting a guy's ADP up just a little bit. Now, do I still think Brock Bowers would go round 8, round 9? Probably. I think someone would take a chance on him, even if Laporta never did what he did last year. I think someone would take a chance on Bowers, maybe late round 8 or round 9. I'm not saying like he would drastically fall in ADP, but his ADP is boosted a little bit, not because of something he did, but because of something another player did last year. And I don't agree with that, and I don't draft players based on what other people have done. It's kind of like the Marvin Harrison dilemma. Like if we didn't have a run of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, if we didn't have a run of these wide receivers having amazing rookie years, Marvin Harrison wouldn't be this high, right? I'm not saying Marvin Harrison should go lower, but what I'm trying to say is other people's situations and what they did is a little bit baked into what Brock Bowers and where he's being ranked, in my opinion. Now, is he the best tight end prospect maybe we've ever seen? Probably. There's a good chance he is. I'm just a little bit worried, especially on the Raiders offense, where I don't see them throwing it a whole lot. And you have Devontae Adams there. You still have Jacoby Myers, who I know people are going to kind of laugh at. Jacoby Myers was like a top 20, top 24 wide receiver last year. Jacoby Myers had 70 catches, 800 yards, he had 106 targets, right? You still have Michael Mayer there, another tight end who is a good blocker and is going to be on the field. Michael Mayer is not just going to disappear. So, and you have a team who's going to run the ball a lot, and their starting quarterback is either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. We're not talking about 2013 Peyton Manning as their quarterback. So just keep that in mind with Brock Bowers. It's a little bit too rich for me, and I'll definitely just wait on tight end and grab like a Dallas Goedert in the 9-10, right? Round 8, I put Caleb Williams here. I love Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks quickly. We're going to be talking about him as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL very soon. That being said, it's kind of crazy that a non-rushing rookie quarterback is being drafted this high. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is that? QB 10, if I counted correctly. And please, Sleeper, can you put the positional number of where they're drafted, right? It would help so much. He's being drafted as the QB 10, and he's not a rushing quarterback. He's not a rushing quarterback. If he was a rushing quarterback, I'd be more in on it. A Jaden Daniels. I was in on Anthony Richardson around this range last year. Now, that being said, I do think Caleb Williams is going to put up a decent rushing floor. I could see him putting up a Patrick Mahomes-like rushing floor of, basically averaging about 20 yards a game. I could definitely see that. I don't think he's a statue by no means. My worry here is just the biggest worry with rookie quarterbacks is touchdowns, in my opinion. It's touchdowns. Look at CJ Stroud last year. CJ Stroud, amazing year, right? Absolute amazing year. Everyone's talking about how amazing he was. He had 23 touchdowns. He missed 2 games. I think he was on, if you stat it out, he was on a 25 or 26 touchdown pace. That's amazing for a rookie. That's not going to be super relevant for fantasy football, right? Not going to be super relevant. It will be probably top 12. 27 touchdowns and 4,300 yards. You're probably close to a top 2. You're probably going to be a low-end QB1. But that's my whole point here. Just look at some of the other quarterbacks going after, Caleb Williams. And I think I can get similar production from guys like Purdy, Tua, and probably safer production as well because they're not rookies. We kind of know what we're going to get from Purdy to Goff. Jaden Daniels, I think, has more upside in terms for fantasy than Caleb Williams. Justin Herbert, all the, Trevor Lawrence, even guys like Cousins and Stafford who are going 4 rounds later than Caleb Williams, I think can put up very similar production, low-end QB1 production that I think Caleb Williams, given his best season, like best case scenario in year 1, is going to be a low-end QB1. I don't see him cracking the top 7 in points per game. In total points, maybe if a bunch of guys get hurt, some guys get hurt. But in points per game, I don't see him cracking the top 7. Now, we do have to treat him a little bit differently because this is a rookie quarterback that's never come into a situation with 3 stud receivers. You have a future Hall of Famer in Keenan Allen. You have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL coming off his best season in DJ Moore. You have a top 10 pick in Rome Odunze. By the way, you still have Cole Kmet, a really good pass-catching tight end, and Gerald Everett as a backup tight end. By the way, you still have DeAndre Swift, a really good pass-catching running back. So, yeah, like he's rookie quarterback's never come into this situation before, which is why we have to think about him a little bit differently. That being said, I'm okay to be wrong on Caleb Williams because even if I am wrong on Caleb Williams, I don't think I'm going to be that wrong, right? Maybe, okay, I don't want to draft him as QB10. Maybe he finishes as QB10. It's not going to be that far off from guys like Goff or Cousins or things like that. So I'm going to avoid Caleb Williams, just going a little bit too high for me. Round 9, it's Keon Coleman for me. And this is a little bit like the Packers situation. This is another, I should have mentioned these guys as the ambiguous wide receiver room, right? Like we don't really know where the targets are going to go. I think a lot of people are banking a little bit on Keon Coleman, and I just think he's going to struggle to begin with. He's going to struggle a bit. And I'm not the biggest Keon Coleman fan. There's opportunity there for sure. But I just think veteran guys like Curtis Samuel, maybe even Khalil Shakir, guys like that, Dalton Kincaid might lead this team in targets. I'm going to take my money on, I'm going to put my money on one of those guys, either Samuel or Shakir, and they're going 2 rounds later. So it's kind of like the Packers situation, a little bit of some ambiguity around this situation. So I'm generally going to go for more of the value than reach a little bit on one of the other guys. When to me, like, I think Curtis Samuel has a better chance at leading or having more targets on this offense than Keon Coleman does. Round 10. It's Blake Corum for me in round 10. I don't hate it in this range. Like, I'm not saying like I hate, oh my God, you drafted Blake Corum in round 10, especially in these later rounds. We're getting into, all these, we're starting to get to, okay, it's round 10, it's 11, it's 12. We're taking chances on most of these guys, right? So, like, you can't fault someone for taking a chance on Blake Corum. I guess what I would say, it reminds me a little bit of the Zach Charbonnet from last year. And again, I've done this research. I put a video out on it where I looked at, teams when they drafted running backs, established running backs. Sorry, when they drafted running backs in the first, second, or third round with an established guy already there, that rookie almost never does anything. I think the only case we have in the last 15 years of a team drafting a running back with an established guy there was Javonte Williams' rookie year. What was that, 2021, 2020? It was Javonte Williams' rookie year. And Javonte Williams, it was Melvin Gordon. We're not talking about this amazing running back that was already there. It was Melvin Gordon, who's a little bit older, right? So people are drafting him in this range where they're expecting a little bit more than just a handcuff, right? Round 10 is kind of first, second guy on the bench, right? Maybe it's a starter for you if you play in deeper leagues, but round 10 to me, it's still, you're at the point where you're not drafting just a pure handcuff. Look at the guys going around him. Ezekiel Elliott is going to get a lot of carries. Jerome Ford could get a lot of carries at the beginning of the year. Gus Edwards, we're talking about guys that we're not quite at the handcuff stage yet. And so people are drafting him a little bit. I just don't think, unless Kyren Williams gets hurt, he's going to do much. Now, that being said, if you're going to take a handcuff, take true handcuffs on really good offenses. So I don't hate the Blake Corum pick. I guess I'm just saying temper your expectations a little bit, because you're drafting a guy that you're probably going to have to hold on to who's not going to be producing, but you can't drop him because the minute you drop him, Kyren Williams is going to get banged up. So just temper expectations. Round 11, again, it starts getting hard to criticize these picks because we're getting late in the draft to a certain extent, right? My pick here is Mike Williams. I don't really expect too much from Mike Williams. He's already starting, I believe, the year on PUP. Yeah, he's already starting on PUP. He tore his ACL. He's an older wide receiver who can never stay healthy, right? He's 29 years old, and he's coming off an ACL injury. He can literally, and even when he was a young guy, he could never stay healthy. Never stay healthy. That was, he was always banged up. He played a lot of games, but he was always banged up in those games, especially the last 2 years. He's missed 18 games in the last 2 years. So I just think this Packers offense is going to be like, if it stays the same and they don't trade for someone, it's going to be like what Devontae Adams was for the Packers there all those years, right? You go and look at Rodgers' back-to-back MVP seasons, and usually when you have a quarterback who's the MVP and he's throwing almost 50 touchdowns and 4,300 yards, usually that means you have multiple receivers that are putting up significant amount of production, right? That wasn't the case. Devontae Adams, 150 targets, 1,375 yards, 18 touchdowns in 2020. The next player on the list in terms of targets is MBS, who has 63 targets. 63 targets. It was basically Devontae Adams is getting a huge amount, and then there's like 4 other guys, and they're all going to get like 60 to 70 targets. That's how it was, even when Aaron Rodgers was putting up 40 touchdowns, 50 touchdowns, and things like that. Like, the dude was just hyper targeting Devontae Adams. 2021, same situation. 170 targets for Devontae Adams. Second place was 60. 60. And I think this offense is going to run very, very similarly with not as much passing production. I think Rodgers will be fine. I think he throws around 28 to 30 touchdowns, probably 4,000 to 4,300 yards. I don't think he gets close to the MVP Packers, 40, 50 touchdown type of season. And I think just a huge, huge amount of that is going to go to Garrett Wilson. And I don't really see much left over. And then it's going to go to other guys. It's going to go to Conklin, Breece Hall, Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, I believe, is still there. And then Mike Williams. So you're going to get a bunch of guys who have 60 to 70 targets. And so I'll just pass. I'll take someone with a little bit more upside, like an Xavier Leggett, even like, one of these backup handcuff running backs, which now we're in the range of handcuffs and things like that. And then finally in round 12, again, it's really tough to pick because these are all kind of getting to the point of dart throws. It's just Josh Downs for me. I just don't know where he fits in on this offense. Now, I do think it's a little disrespectful because Josh Downs, we're talking about Zay Flowers and Jaden Reed with these amazing seasons, right? Zay Flowers, 850 yards. Wow, amazing. Josh Downs had 68 catches and 770 yards. Like, he had a really good rookie season. So it does feel disrespectful to say I wouldn't reach here for him. I just don't know, how much are they going to be throwing the ball in Indianapolis? I think they will throw it a little bit more than we're thinking, but I think you're going to have to be very efficient. And B, they just brought in a second-round player in A.D. Mitchell. And so I think that relegates like Josh Downs to just being very, very inconsistent, or he's going to be that type of player where it's just like, oh yeah, he'll get you, maybe he's not inconsistent. Maybe he has a little bit safer of a floor, but his floor is like 4 for 50, 4 for 45 and stuff like that. And it's just like, okay, maybe I can start him during a bye week, but it's not really doing much for my team. And I just think I'll go with a little bit more potential here. An Xavier Leggett, one of these backup running backs who could have huge potential, Troy Franklin even. So there you have it, guys. I did make one of these videos where I look at players that I like from each round, so check that out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it helps you. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys all in the next video.